we didn't know really how to format this, but the key words are question time. We feel that a lot of us have talked at you, and what I'd like to do, if you're happy with this, is that I'm going to rove around the room with this roving. I'm going to be the lovely assistant, essentially, okay? All right, I'm going to be the assistant. And I want to know from each of these folks, I want them to introduce themselves and just tell us quickly, don't overrun this time, Mr. Jones. He did a fantastic, I sat in yours and I really, really enjoyed it. And I've just come out of a UDL. I want to ask, what's the connection between Universal Design for Learning and AI? So that's what I want to ask you. No, but really fantastic. Yeah, did she look really scared then? Yeah, great. Just tell us what you're thinking about and how is your institution beginning to get its ducks in a row, if you are, around AI. And then I think what I really want to do is I want to go around and have a chat with people because I think we've talked at you enough and I think we've got a golden 25 minutes. And if you're okay with that, is everyone all right with that as a format for my Universal Design for Learning for the panel time? Mia, you kick off.
Hello, I am Mia. You might have seen me in the AI Practical Takeaways talk. I'm a technology support officer, though that is still a query about whether that actually is what TSO stands for. I'm from AET, and I am more of a kind of technician slash EdTech guide within a hub in Milton Keynes. So I'm very much on the ground in terms of schools. In terms of AI, I think a lot of us overcomplicate AI. I think AI as a general thing in the simplest form is you going on Facebook and it's suggesting something to you that you were talking about 20 minutes ago. It learns from your behaviours. I think machine learning is quite a nice phrase for it. I think it's just teaching an algorithm how to work. And it can be as simple as a suggestion by the computer.
You've got a blue star on your cheek. You are aware of that?
It is a pimple patch, and this is very Gen Z of me.
Or Gen Z. Fiona.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Fiona Aubrey-Smith. I'm a classroom teacher at heart, but now teach from all ages right up to and including postgraduate university students, many of which are school leaders. And also research. And the interesting thing for me around AI, and there is a link to UDL actually here,
somehow,
is that AI challenges us to think about not just what we're doing in classrooms, but why we're doing it. What is the human value add in a world that has AI in it already and will continue to do so? And the link there, I think, with UDL is that when we're challenged to think about why we're in the classroom and what we're doing to add that human value, it's what does that look like for each individual learner? What do they need and what's our role to make that possible for each learner?
And for us not to be prescriptive as educators in how we want to receive messages back, assessment essentially back, let people decide how they're going to tell us what they know.
As beautifully illustrated by Jamie and Matt and colleagues a moment ago from Leo, give the children, the young people of all ages, of all stages, the opportunity to share what they know in a way that's meaningful to them, because then that gives you the data, the real-time data on learning that you need, that empowers you to be the most effective teacher and the most effective leader you can be. So everybody benefits from that system.
It was a fantastic moment in that seminar. Thank you from Woodland and Leo. Graham, welcome.
Thanks. I'm just glad that I'm not the last speaker because I've done this before. You're the last one in the panel and you're frantically trying to think of something fresh and new to say. So I'm really sorry to you.
All right, we'll move on.
On my behalf, I'm really happy.
Thanks for that. We'll move on. John. No, Graham.
So I work for the Lear Academy Trust. We're a trust of 9 schools serving 5,000 pupils in Surrey and South London. I guess AI is really broad and vast, and it's part of all of our lives, whether we like it, know it, or otherwise. But what I think AI does is it re-professionalises us as teachers and educators. It enables us to streamline on processes that we have to do, and to give us this, hopefully, this professional drive and time and capacity to spend on what really matters, and that's clearly the children in our schools, colleges, nurseries, sixth forms, educational institutions. So I'm really excited about what that looks like. Clearly, like everyone's spoken about today through the various workshops, it's about being slow and being cautious, but also being optimistic and excited.
Gosh. John, Graham set it up for you.
Thanks, Graham. My name's John. I'm a teacher. I work at the RGS Worcester Family of Schools. My job title is the Director of Innovation. What it means can be interpreted in lots of different ways. One of the things I need to do is make sure that we get meaningful use out of technology. Whereas a family of schools where there's a really positive digital culture. So when AI emerged in January as a sort of a thing that we could all access, we tried to embrace it as best we could. I'm by no means an expert in AI, but I'm trying my best to keep up with everything and make sure that the teachers and the pupils in our community and the parents as well get the best out of it, but also understand how it works and the positives and the potential negatives as well.
And how many pictures of sort of Terminators have we seen today on the slides? I was counting 42 slides, PowerPoint slides of some Terminator robots teaching. Why are we all petrified about this?
I think science fiction films over the last sort of 30, 40, 50 years have painted a sort of dystopian future where robots and AI aren't particularly helpful, especially when they go around shooting you or use you as batteries in a sort of horrible future world with no sun. Hopefully that isn't what we're talking about today. All of us have got the opportunity to use this technology now. It's freely available online. There's lots of quite right concern about it. There's also lots of hearsay and information out there that we can all access, different opinions. So I think having this sort of conversation is really important because I think we're all teachers. We're all on the shop floor, so to speak, and hopefully we can give you some hints and tips and ideas about what we've done well and what we've got horribly wrong as well.
So just before I come to the audience, I just want to ask whatever TSO means, where would you recommend to someone out there that they've come to this LGfL conference and been bombarded by Terminators and AI and massive Graham phrases like it's going to re-professionalise us as teachers. You'd have to prove that in a minute, Graham.
Well, thank you.
Frankly, but where do you think people should start? I mean, John talks about starting in January, probably January the 9th at about 3:30, wasn't it? Yeah.
So we got lots of emails and questions, etc. So we did an inset in January and kicked off from there.
All starts with an inset. So where would you start?
I think, as a trust, we started quite small, where we were kind of the first users as TSOs. There's a group of 18 of us. We were kind of the first users for like Bard and things like that. Where I think it's healthy curiosity. I think that's what you start with, is healthy curiosity in the sense of what could I do with this? Especially because we all start with like ChatGPT and Bard with very vague text until you learn how to be a little bit more precise and look at exactly what you're looking for. But yeah, I think healthy curiosity is definitely the starting point. I think listening to what other schools are doing, what other people are doing, where they're learning, and also taking their mistakes. That's a very good way of going about it, seeing what's worked with other places. So maybe it is a case of starting small with like a very specific group of users that can do it safely.
Nice, good ideas. Shall I open this up? I mean, you've got people on different stages of the journey here. We've got a good few moments left. Are you happy to be my lovely assistant? It's about time. Any fire away. Comments. Tell us who you are as well. That's important. Comments, puzzles, challenges. We're ready.
Okay. My name's Amanda and I work in school improvement. And I was talking to a head teacher literally last week who told me that they'd written their SDP and their CEF with AI. My concern was that as a leadership team, they hadn't sat down, they hadn't discussed it, they had all of that professional conversation that you would get from that meeting, they did put in their key priorities, their areas of concern that they had self-evaluated. My other role, I look after a lot of initial teacher training and ECTs as well. Lots of them developing their own planning through AI. So sort of in the professional side, what adults, teachers, professionals, educators are using it for, I would like to just see if the panel have got anything to sort of say about, pros and cons of it from the professional side.
Okay, let me take a couple of others if there are any. We'll try and bunch them up. And anyone else? Colleague here, tell us who you are and where you're from.
I'm Tommy too from ARC Schools. I think, like the lady said earlier, we've been using AI for many years in most of our systems, and it's very important that there is clarity around what we mean. Are we talking about generative in terms of Bard and ChatGPT? In that case, maybe we need to be more specific about the language, because I think there's got to be general strategy on how we use AI. I mean, one of the things that's concerned us at ARC Schools is how systems we have implemented AI without effectively they're changing the terms of agreement. You signed up to the system to do one thing, and all of a sudden it's doing another thing and using your data in ways you didn't expect. What's the comeback on that? What can schools do? To stop that from happening. So yeah.
Good points there about definition. What are we actually talking about? I'll take third little one. Comment? No? Should we kick off? Fiona, I think that was an interesting comment from the colleague here.
Yeah, really, really good point that you're surfacing there. And I think one of the things that has been a common theme across all conversations around AI is that it can do this for us, it can do that for us, it can make things more efficient, it can reduce workload, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of sit hearing these things thinking, so what? Why is reducing workload or making something quicker or more efficient a benefit? Now, we kind of need to unpack these conversations to more stages than we already do. So great if something makes workload reduced, great if something's more efficient, but why is that benefit? Well, it's because it either means that we can reshape our capacity to add more value to it. So the depth and the meaning of our tasks can be increased. Or it reduces the overall work burden, in which case the impact is on well-being and a work-life balance. And both of those things are vitally important. And whether it's students using AI to generate essays, as we've heard, or outcomes from their work, or whether it's colleagues using AI to create lesson plans, school improvement plans, whatever it might be, the value in doing that should be because it becomes a launch pad to then more meaningful discussion, where the discussion is about how we're going to refine and improve and extend that thinking rather than just quicker done, parked on the shelf. Otherwise, using something to generate a school improvement plan, if it hasn't involved the team that are going to be doing the improving, well, it's not a school improvement plan then, is it? It's just a document to file on a shelf.
Graham, reactions to either?
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to simplify it there, I think, just to say that I don't think AI is to replace any of that human stuff that you've kind of spoken about. And it's about enabling humans, it sounds a bit cheesy, but it's about enabling humans to be humans. And actually, sometimes we do need a bit of support along the journey. And actually, if we do have that white page syndrome, or we've had that conversation, but we need help with parts of it, then that will only ever be a help to something else that's really important. And I think, was it Tommy? Yeah. Just on that point, one of the things that came to me was about us all being really mindful that all of the kind of data processing work that we've done, we remember that we did that in light of A, B, and C, and that documentation, that thinking isn't necessarily relevant if we're doing D, E, and F. And I think that there's a real danger that across the system we look at a tool and not necessarily think about, well, actually what we're doing with that tool. Just put really simply, some of these, there's writing using Google Docs or Word to write a letter. There's something totally different using an AI engine and putting it into that tool at the end of it. So I think it's just about being really, really clear about what we're doing and defining what like you were saying, what do we mean by Gen AI? What do we mean by AI? And which bit of those processes are we really focusing on now?
So, John, in your seminar, some of the most important words were right at the start. When you talked about AI, you talked about the culture we have. It can't work, can it, without the culture we have?
It's a good question. It can, but it might require a change of culture, which, as we all know, is very difficult. Culture can change, but it takes time, it takes strategy, all those sorts of things. So our culture exists as it does today after adopting iPads in 2013. So we're 10 years down that line. When you get a job at our school, one of the questions, or maybe two of the questions at the interview stage, is about your use of technology and your vision for technology in school. We don't use technology for the sake of it. We're strong believers in finding meaning in technology use. We still have children painting and running outside of forest school using pencils, traditional learning. But when you can do stuff with technology that really adds value, that's when we grasp it. And there's a huge amount of value to be added with AI from a teaching and learning perspective, including teaching children about AI, building on what Tommy was talking about, getting those definitions right. Explaining what it is and how it works, because they are growing up in a world where that tech's only going to get better. It's only going to get more profound and more common. So AI literacy needs to be something that's taught at schools. I mean, I'm going off-piste from your question slightly, but that's the culture we have. And therefore, children are ready to adapt and learn those things in philosophy lessons, in computer science lessons, and have those discussions with their parents as well. So I think culture is a difficult word to define. It's simply, it can be simply described as how things are done. And we're lucky enough to have a positive digital culture which has embraced AI as much as it can do within the short time frame that things like ChatGPT have been available.
Yeah.
I think you yourself described a con to AI and implementing it, but at the same time, I think it's all about the culture we live in and users. I think being safe is dependent on the user. There's the internet, for example, has loads of cons, and how do you keep safe on the internet? And it's all about user education and knowing what you're doing and why. Biggest example for writing up lesson plans or anything as you're starting out in your teaching career, a lot of it is a really nice springboard. You're jumping off. You're trying to see what is there to see, but you still need to be human. You're not there to plan loads of lessons. A lot of PPA time is spent just planning, when if you could cut down that a little bit by potentially having some ideas already there that have been made by, sure, a machine, but that machine's learned from potentially the learning framework that has been given by the DFE or something like that. You can use that, and instead of having that time as PPA, you are now happier to go teach, which is what you're kind of there for. You're there for that human interaction. This isn't WALL-E. We're not all growing up by robots teaching us. We're teaching other humans how to human, and I think that's the important thing to remember.
We're teaching other humans how to human. That's fantastic.
Have you seen a 2-year-old?
I had one. But I think I've gone grey. Any other quick comments? We've got about 5 minutes left. Just quick commenters, quick questions. There's a lot of nodding over here. You were nodding at Fiona.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Please.
We've talked about a lot of text input. I was just wondering about voice activation, and there's been a lot in the news recently about 3 seconds and you can grab somebody's voice and imitate it for scams. Just wondering the panel's thoughts on voice activation and how it's going to be used in schools.
Really interesting. Anyone else? Another comment?
The other thing, I've got 3 teenage children. They grew up in that era. They're with it. They're there. So we have to embrace it. We can't ignore it. We have to embrace it, and we have to make it safe. And so they're digital natives. They've grown up. They're already using it. They've been using it for years. In a way, we're playing catch up to some extent, and they will run with it. And it's the gun. The gun has gone off, and we need to embrace the gun and keep. It's the safety thing. The other thing to bear in mind: Google and Microsoft and all these people don't do it for no reason. They do it for this. So you've got to bear that in mind. It's all about money. We're not giving them. We're giving them data for them to monetize. Always remember that.
Anyone else? Last comment.
My name is Gary Henderson. I'm Director of IT at Millfield, a boarding school in Somerset. For me, the question I'd put out there is, will AI lead to a lot of questions around kind of assessment and, an education system that many people have been saying should be changing and hasn't. But is AI the catalyst to move us beyond this focus on terminal exams and coursework? Is the AI the catalyst to change that finally?
Do you think it is? What do you think?
I suspect that it has to be, because, you know, how can you, in the current format, let's say, you know, I've been always a big fan of vocational qualifications.
Yeah.
But how do vocational qualifications work in a world where, you know, generative AI is available? And how do you scale assessment? I think, you know, there are a few points from up there about, you know, being human, etc. Do we need to start asking the question about what we're actually assessing? You know, the exams, etc. What do we want? Do we want to start assessing being human in some way? And the question is, how do you do that?
Okay. John.
Okay,
Reactions.
no worries. I'll start with the voice, the AI voice cloning. So we use something called a phishing tackle, which is a bit of software that gets pinged out to all teachers and staff once every couple of weeks with a little 1-minute instructional video. The most recent one was about AI voice cloning, and it piqued my interest. I was thinking, yeah, whatever, can't be right. So I went onto the App Store, got an app which is free called Voice Cloner, originally enough, and I spoke into it for a minute, and then said something that I'd never say, which is Aston Villa are better than Charlton Athletic, because they're clearly not. And then I said Villa Park's better than the Valley, which it isn't. I thought there's no way that I can convince anyone that I've said that. So I then typed it in, and it said it in my voice almost identically to me, and I don't like my voice at the best of times. And then sent it to my wife, who then replied just with an exclamation mark, not that interested really, just keep him happy sort of thing. But when I went home, I said that wasn't me. That was surprising to her. So again, make awareness for teachers, and also let kids know that you know they can do that. And in the video, it spoke about how this really needs to be I don't want to be disrespectful, but people who don't understand the technology as well as perhaps our generations, need to be aware that this can happen, because if they get prank phone calls or even sinister phone calls, they could be susceptible. So it's important to raise awareness, which ties into your point about Google Bard, etc., and these companies making money. Children need to know that they're being monetized. Why is Instagram free? Why is Snapchat free? They need to know that they're the thing that's being marketed, essentially. And the final point about exam systems, in my opinion, it should spell the end of exams at some point. Whether it will or not is down to government, I suppose, when there's no real faith in that. But it certainly opens up lots of possibilities for soft skill analysis as well as hard skill analysis.
I'll start on assessment, just because I think that would flow quite nicely. I know this is something that Fiona and I have spoken about like as schools, like we are the system, and perhaps we are the change makers that are needed to bring about the change for the future. Because AI will change a number of things in our lives, right? And I think assessment for children is part of that. Or children learn is really for whatever age that you educate. And I think that it's down to schools, colleges, maths trusts, etc., in this room and beyond to do that, and to be bold and to be courageous with our leadership, and to recognise that in order for us to give our young people not just the minimum they need, but the absolute best possible chances in life, then we need to grab that by the horns. And that was an awkward film, wasn't it? I'm glad I got that right. And to really run with it. Let's move on really quickly on that point. So where were we? Monetization. This isn't quite as exciting, I don't think, but I think it's about just being really, really open and knowledgeable and wise and sensible about decisions that we make, and to recognise that actually we don't live in a perfect world, and money is an inevitable factor of that. And so as educational organisations, it's about us making informed decisions, and that may or may not be okay based on any situation. But equally, not to get drawn into perhaps doom and gloom about these situations, to think, okay, what's the best way that we can embrace this risk and risk mitigate to an appropriate level? And I think we're up for time, so I'm going to stop there.
Fiona, would you like to grab the bull by the horns?
Apparently I'm about to. So on the assessment point, I think if we have AI that can plan a lesson, AI that can create the resources, AI can then do the students' work, and AI that can then mark it, and AI that can then take it through a plagiarism filter, then we need to take that opportunity to reframe what we're doing so that we as teachers are adding greater value to what learners are experiencing, whatever age they are. And my final point would just be, whenever you have any thoughts around AI tools, whatever they are, whatever context they're in, I would challenge you to think two things. One, how does the usage of that by either the learner or by yourself affect the learner? And by that, I mean, how does it make them see themselves as a learner, their learner identity? And how does it affect the trajectory that you are setting that learner off on, both short-term and longer-term?
Is what we understood from that last seminar we were in, that what you ask pupils is really important. The word you use. Mm-hmm. Last words to you, Gen Z.
To keep it short, evil people are evil. We just got to keep ahead of the curve. Whatever tech throws at you, they're still going to do it. And that links to my point. Humans are humans. Humans are going to err. You know, we move.
Hey. Hey, that's a great, I love that take. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much to this fantastic, wonderful, lovely panel and my lovely assistant, Bob Usher.
Thank you, everyone.